Muito bom dia, obrigada Gui, Rafa, Estela, bom dia a todos e todas. A gente está começando agora o painel de Ecossistemas Internacionais de Startups, desafios e oportunidades para empreendedores e grandes empresas. Só para lembrar, esse painel será em inglês com tradução simultânea, mas se você quiser assistir com áudio original, você tem como selecionar essa opção aqui na nossa plataforma, tá? Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are very excited to have you with us today. I'm Deborah Zanforlin. I'm Startup Hunter here at Liga Ventures. And today I am with Vanessa Viana. She is Managing Partner of Capital Lab Ventures. She's speaking directly from Milan, actually. She's based in London, but she's in Milan right now. And we also have the Dror, Senior VP Business Development at Wix, and also VP of Investment at Decima Ventures. And today we're going to be talking about the international startup ecosystem. They both have tremendous experience in investments in early and late stage startup, the international innovation ecosystem. So they will be able to tell us a little bit more about the challenges and opportunities. So thank you so much, Vanessa and Dror, for being here. We are really excited to have you. And I think a good way to start this conversation would be for you to share a little bit about your thoughts related to how is the current scene, how is the current startup scene both in UK and Israel, what's going on over there. So let's start with you, Vanessa.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure to be here with you. I would like to congratulate Liga Ventures for the work you are doing, connecting startups with big corporations and generating value for everyone. So following on your questions about the ecosystem, first of all, a brief introduction. So Capital Lab Ventures is a venture capital fund, and we invest globally, and we selected a few markets, venture capital markets, where we wanted to be in, because they have very specific characteristics that help us as fund managers create and deliver value for our investors. So we invest in the United Kingdom, Europe, but also Israel. We have, well, some of our best investments are in Israeli startups, and of course, Brazilian and Latin American companies. And first, I'm going to talk about the ecosystem here just to answer your questions, but we can explore those characteristics later on. Everybody around the world has felt that the venture capital ecosystem has changed a lot globally. And some of the consequences were the series they increased, the size of the investment increased, and there was a lot of acceleration in terms of capital trying to find startups. And one of the things that we see, the European venture capital investment has been developing a lot for the last 5-10 years. So investment has grown globally for the last 5 years. This year, Europe altogether has attracted $60 billion in investments for their startups, of which around 12 billion in the UK. And it represents a significant increase from previous years. But beyond the macroeconomics and beyond the big numbers, I think, and even comparing these ecosystems, one of the things that I really like about being in the UK and being in Europe is about collaboration. The venture capital environment is very collaborative. So VCs, corporate venture capitals, firms, big corps, innovation agencies, which is the public segment, and startups, they really cooperate together to generate value, to create value. So they work together so that there is value appreciation. Capital Lab Ventures is focused on deep tech investments. So this is another characteristics that we see. Deep technology is accelerating a lot, the development of deep technology. So being in the UK, we're close to the best universities, the best research centers. By the way, Israel also is a benchmark and a reference, and that's one of the reasons why we also chose Israel. And so being able to be close to the universities and having the regulatory framework that helps these researchers and these technology developers spin off their inventions and create their companies. This is a very unique characteristics of the markets that we are operating in. And this also means that the quality of the startups that we find and the founders is very high. And but when you compare, for example, with the United States, that has a very large market and a lot of dry powder means money available for investment coming from the venture capital industry, then you can actually find very high quality startups, cutting edge technology, but at a lower valuation. And because the UK market has a very liquid secondary market, this is very important. We can actually liquidate these investments and yield higher returns. So in general, this is a bit of the summary of how the UK venture capital market has been evolving, not only the UK, but also UK and the European continent as well.
And it's great. Summarizing, looks like all the sectors are collaborating, and for what I heard, that is a lot of money available for investment as well. So, Dror, what's your views on this scene in Israel?
Thank you for having me, and I understood that we are the first session, so I want to wish good luck to all the participants and the Liga Venture in the event. I'm happy to participate, even that it's Zoom. I was preferred to come to Brazil and do it face-to-face. It's very hard to taste the food and the drinks on the Zoom.
I agree.
About the ecosystem, Israel is very innovative in the ecosystem. The ecosystem is built from a lot of building blocks that make industry to succeed. Israel started one of the first companies that started to build a startup industry in the 17 because of our situation that Israel is not don't have a lot of resource. We don't have oil. We have a very small market, so we need to build company that will become global. So and there is a lot of innovation in Israel, especially software, but not just software, medical device, of course, military industry, and some other vertical. It's give Israel and it's come from a lot of building block. I can mention few. You need to have a university, as Vanessa said. You need to have a lot of people that are graduate university and come with a technology. You need to have an angel community that gives the chance to those entrepreneurs with the seed money to start. You need to have the VC in the different level. VC for early stage, VC for the acceleration and the growth phase, and of course the mezzanine, and you need to have all of those. And in the last, I know about the last 25 that I'm involved in industry is change rapidly. Of course, in the last 2 years, the number was becoming crazy, but it's not surprise when the government are printing money and go to the market, it's all the matrix is changing. I mentioned just the building, but there is more. There is all the accelerator and the incubator that help to start up. It's all the ecosystem of the mentor and the community that and the cross helping between the companies. And also the enterprise and the, what it's called the venture capital that come from the big company that also give money, but also helping the company with going to the market. But since we are in a session that talking about Israel for me, and I don't know if you know the number, but this was amazing. Just in the first half of 2021, there was more than the $12 billion invested in Israel. I believe about 20 companies went public. Some of them become almost $20 billion. I think it's more or less like all Europe together, and we are just less than maybe Sweden. We are the size of Sweden, or maybe we don't even the population of London. So it's very amazing what's happening in Israel. But I want to say something about Israel and Brazil, because I was in Brazil about 5 years ago, coming to talk about innovation. I was invited by Kubo and I was in shock. Brazil was like Israel 25 years ago. Kubo have a building of 3 floors. The event was about 300 people. You went to see the facility, was very basic, and I was in shock. And I come about 2 years after, or maybe less, and I was in shock again, because Kubo have a building of 14 floors. Across the street, Santander have a building of 12 floors. There was so many angel and investor and venture capital that came to Brazil and start building and start pushing the startup. And I believe 5 years after, it's a different story. I see amazing company coming from Brazil. I believe in and they built amazing ecosystem. That's what you ask about. The ecosystem is starting by involving of businessmen that work as an angel and mentor. There is I met, but there are probably more than 2 or 3 angel group. It's very important, people that bring money, but also knowledge. It's also important to have a successful success story. It gives a lot of energy to the startup when they read in the news that this company was public, this was acquired. It gives appetite to investor to come and put more money. And I think Brazil today have amazing ecosystem. And I'm meeting a lot of company. Weeks in Brazil, just to understand, Brazil is one of the top country for us. We have more than just about Wix, maybe. If maybe there's someone in the audience that don't know, Wix.com, Wix.com, it's a solution, it's a platform, SaaS solution that help anyone to go online. We are giving the website, the CRM, the invoice, the e-commerce, about 45 different tools that help you to go online. And Brazil is one of the top countries for us. We have about 20 million users in Brazil, business that using Wix to go online, and it's going amazing. And we are very happy. We open an office in Brazil now. We have people in Rio, we have people in São Paulo, and we also are open to help any company that have solution for small business. And this is part of the echo, that we are opening a upmarket and invite any startup that have something that is interesting to the community, that to Wix user, to get access to those users through the upmarket.
It is amazing to see the changes you said, right? That in 2-3 years, Brazil changed a lot in the ecosystem. And I need to tell you, I don't think any Brazilian watched a YouTube video without a Wix advertisement on it. So I'm pretty sure that all Brazilians know Wix here. I myself already use it.
I said maybe there's someone. I didn't say that there is someone that don't know.
Well, I can confirm what you say. Wix here is super huge. I think in this context, what would be interesting to know is your perspective about what did you see in UK, Europe, Israel, that is like incentives, politics, maybe infrastructure that help those companies or help those ecosystems to grow, that you think Brazil could use and Brazil could learn so we can start adapting. So I don't know, Vanessa, maybe you can start giving you a little bit of opinion on that.
Yeah, sure, Deborah. Thank you for the question. So as Dror said, it's not about capital only. It's about capital, it's about coordination, it's about strategy, and it's about putting technology as a priority for the economy. You know, technology has this capacity of increasing how you can scale your economy. So these are some of the things that we find in the geographies that we chose to invest in. So for example, there's a lot of funding available, funding, not only from the private market and the private companies and the corporate firms, but there's public funding, and public funding cooperates with the private companies to make these investments within an agenda. So for example, there are topics in the United Kingdom that are the government has decided, okay, this is a strategic for the development of the country. So they have artificial intelligence, smart city, airspace industry, biotechnology. And then they created not only funding, but also innovation agencies to help these startups, one, talk to the corporates, and two, accelerate. So this is something that Brazil can learn from these countries. For example, Dror was saying about the number of startups in Israel. Israel is the country who has the largest number of startups per capita, per person in Israel, because it's a strategy to the country to invest in technology. And it is so important for the economy of a country because we change the terms of trade. We start selling intellectual property. So first thing I would say is coordination between the agents and coupled with funding. The other thing is a favorable regulatory framework. You have to make it easy for innovators and founders and startups to begin building their businesses. And this is something that Brazil can learn a lot, because we know that there's so much administrative and bureaucratic difficulties if you want to start your businesses. So the regulatory framework must make it easy for you, for example, to set up a company, to hire employees. You need to attract the best talent, and talent today is global. The competition for developers nowadays, it doesn't matter where you are. It's very hard to find these people, and technology needs these people. But also regulation that would help these startups fundraise. So for example, in the United States, they have the SAFE structure, which is sort of a debt instrument. And it's also good for startups to have the possibility to use convertible instruments. In Brazil, the SA, as we say, the Sociedades Anônimas, they can issue debentures. But until recently, actually, there's a project running in Congress now to approve the possibility that startups can also issue convertible notes, and these convertible notes would be the equivalent of the debentures. This is on the side of the founders. But you also need to protect investors, because investors, they're putting their capital there. They want to see the return. And sometimes the founders don't have the proper education to run their business accordingly. So how is the reporting of those investments going to be made? Is there going to be transparency to the investor? The investor needs to know, I put my money there. Where is my money being, what is my money being used for? So this is another thing that we find in the regulatory framework in the United Kingdom, also in other regions, Europe and Israel. The other thing is tax structure. This is very important. There are many tax benefits, both for investors and for founders in the United Kingdom. So for example, if any British person wants to invest in a startup as an angel, for example, he can get a rebate from the government and get up to 78% of the investment back if the company goes under. This is called the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. At a later stage, they have the Enterprise Investment Scheme. So if an investor writes a check of £1 million or over, the government gives it back 75%. So they only have 25% value at risk. What's the consequence of this? One, gives capital to startups. Two, it creates a liquid market, a secondary market that allows us to liquidate these investments in the future. In the more advanced stages of a startup, there's a vehicle in the London Stock Exchange called venture capital trusts. These are similar to our funds in the Brazilian Stock Exchange, B3, they're listed. So you can actually buy a quota and sell a quota of a venture capital without necessarily needing to be stuck in the investment for a period of 10 years. So creating these kinds of capital markets vehicles, instruments, tools is very important to help corporates, corporate VCs, venture capitals, independent and angel investors make these investments. This is going to create liquidity. This is going to help appreciate also the value of the startups, because it's the law of supply and demand. If you have a lot of people that want something, the price will rise, and you're going to have a liquid market in which to trade. So this is another lesson. And as Dror was saying about the quality of the human capital, it is so important to invest in universities and to create the possibility that the private market partners with the universities, even if they are public universities. So for example, in the UK, they have a regulation that allows a researcher, let's say a biotechnologist, let's say someone who is developing cutting edge medical discoveries, they have an instrument that allows them to spin off their research from Cambridge, Oxford, Birmingham, Manchester, any university, and automatically spin off from the university and create a startup out of it. So we need to be able to create those vehicles in order to make it easier for founders and for investors on the other side to be able to put their capital there and run the risk of doing innovation. The last thing is like intellectual property rights. We need to be able to protect the intellectual property of the founders. Otherwise, how are they going to extract value from what they're creating? So these countries, they have a very well-developed intellectual property regulation that helps them create incentives for the largest numbers of startups and innovators coming out. And my last observation is with the innovation agencies. So just to give you a very concrete example, the United Kingdom has a few innovation agencies such as the Innovate UK, the Digital Catapult, the Tech Nation, and the Department of International Trade. So for Brazilian startups that want to internationalize their businesses, the DIT, the Department of International Trade of the UK in Brazil, has a very nice program that helps them create their business plan, to understand the local market, to connect to corporates in the UK. Capital Lab Ventures is sponsored by the DIT, and one of our startups, which is a startup from Bahia, Salvador, is within the program. It's called I4C, and it is internationalizing its business through the UK with the support of the DIT. So these kinds of incentives are the things that Brazil and LATAM need to look and study and produce their own incentives to increase the amount of investment, to facilitate really facilitate founders finding investors and investors finding founders. But things have developed a lot, as Dror mentioned, in the last years.
It's a long path to go, but I think we're going there. So we need to mirror countries that are doing successfully. And I agree with you, UK is doing great. But as Dror said, Israel is gigantic right now. So what's your thoughts on it? How Brazil can learn from Israel?
It's a very complicated question because, as I told you, it's built from a lot of pieces, this puzzle. At the end of the day, I think you need, and not everything can be copied because not everything is applicable. For example, Israel don't have a local market. So the moment you build something in a startup in Israel, you need to work globally. In Brazil, you can work with the local market. You have more than 200 million people, and you can build amazing company just for the local market. In Israel, with 6-7 million people that speak Hebrew, it's be complicated to bring 10 million users. And some other issues that are different between those countries. But I think something that is changed, and first of all, as I told you, I see amazing development in the ecosystem in Brazil. But it's never-ending story. It's always need to change and develop. And as Vanessa said, it's a global market. Today, money can move from one side to the and at the end of the day, it's not nice to say, but investors want to make a return of investment. They want to make money, and they can invest anywhere. In 1 minute, they can move money between country. People now can move physical from one country to work from UK to Germany, but today after the Corona, they don't even need to move themselves physically. They can move virtually. The money is moving. So today the competition is global, and you need to be attractive. How you can be attractive? You need to have infrastructure. Vanessa, you mentioned all the bureaucrat and the tax mechanism. It's super because at the end of the day, this is what interesting for the investor, how much tax they're going to pay in each country. I can tell you just an anecdote about Wix. When we started Wix office in Brazil, was about 10 years ago, maybe more. We start working and we see there is no conversion. People are not buying the premium. And when we checked and drill down, we see that we are not supporting a local payment. We say, okay, it's not a problem. We will support local payment. So we went to a payment gateway in Brazil and say, okay, we want to support. Say, it's easy. Just need to fill this form. And what is this? We say, this is the bank account. No, you cannot use a bank account in US. You need to have a local bank account in Brazil. So, okay, no problem. We will open a bank account. We went to the bank, knock on the door. We come, we are Wix. We want to open no problem. We will be happy to open for you a bank account. What is your address? You say, our address is 40th Street in Manhattan. No. You need to have a local office. So you need to open local company in Brazil, a local office. I describe it in 1 minute. This process took us 9 months. To add the ability that we can charge the user with a local credit. So I believe today it's much faster, but this was just one example. Anything need to be as easy as in other country, because at the end of the day, when a capital lab is checking company in Brazil or UK or Israel, she's looking about the team, about the potential market, about the ability to deliver. And if they see too many challenges because of there is not enough people to grow a company, or because the tax, or because it's very hard to have a second round or get more money to the company, they will go to other place to invest the money, because the first obligation of venture capital is to show ROI to investor. And always it's not something that is static, it's a dynamic. And you need to check dynamically what is happening around the world, what happened in the Silicon Valley, what's happened in London, what's happened in Berlin, what's happened in Hong Kong, and try to be attractive as you can. And use your capability. You have amazing local market, a very amazing talent. I don't know if you know, but I found the financial infrastructure in Brazil one of the most development in the world. They have an amazing financial institute and payment method that you cannot find in any countries. They have good infrastructure in telco, with 5G, with a player like Vivo, and some other. You have amazing company in the internet like QOL and Mokaweb, and more. And I think you don't need to learn from Israel. You need to learn from all the world, because this is a global market.
Yeah, you're completely right. I think there is a lot of a pathway for us to grow. We are just ending our panel. Time flies when we are having fun talking about opportunities and what we can learn, right? I really enjoy the fact that you brought it up, that we change a lot, right, in 2-3 years, so we can learn a bit about what Israel did, what UK did, and hopefully implement all those things in our day-to-day here in Brazil. So first, I really appreciate your time. I thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, sharing all your experience. I know you both have a lot of experience here in Brazil. For those that are watching our panel at home, right now is going to pop up a survey on your screen, and you can give a little of your opinions or thoughts about this panel. Okay. Our Liga Open Innovation Summit is just starting. That was just the first panel of the day. We have great content coming up, pitches, talks, insights to share. So stay with us for more amazing content. Liga Open Summit, Innovation com Resultados Reais.
Thank you for having us. Good luck in the event of the 3-day event that you have. I hope it will be successful. I know that in half an hour we can give just few tips, and there is a lot. Everybody that need more help, more question, I will happy to answer. You can find my contact, and if you don't find my contact on the internet, don't start a startup. You don't have enough technology background.
That is true. That is true.
Yes.
Thank
you very much, Deborah and Liga Ventures. Just one final note for our fellow Brazilians. You have nothing less than anybody else around the world. So we need to lose the vira-lata syndrome. As Dror said, we have the best talent in the world. Brazil has one of the largest internet penetration of the world. It's just behind China. So go for it. There's a lot of opportunity. And for the corporates and executives, create the open innovation programs in your firms, because startups are going to take your industry to the future.